All right, let's go to another province now. That's the Western Cape. The Premier there, Alan Winde, has hailed his province's efforts to curb crime in the Western Cape. Delivering his State of the Province address, Winde said the province's murder rate had decreased over the past 5 years. In the latest crime stats, the Western Cape has recorded a decrease of 5.5% in the murder rate. Well, let's get a finer understanding, therefore, of how the province is curbing crime, and we speak now to the Western Cape Community Safety and Police MEC, Reagen Allen. MEC, good evening to you, and thank you for your time. I want to go straight to the safety plan, which was launched in 2019. Premier Winde saying very confidently yesterday during his speech that it's showing results. So you've got to point us to the areas of improvement then.
Thank you so much for bringing us into this particular conversation, considering that in 2019, the Premier tabled a plan that can ultimately make sure that we reduce crime and particularly murder in our province. And I remember vividly that in 2019, this particular plan was not only scrutinized by opposition, but also it was attacked so often. It was attacked so often by opposition, but we can confidently confirm today that our own analysis, together with that of the Institute for Independent and Security Studies, confirmed that between the 4 priority provinces that we have in our country, which is the Western Cape, Eastern Cape, Gauteng and KZN, the Western Cape was the only province that recorded a decrease over that particular period per capita. A decrease, and I want to stress, a decrease considering that we have seen double-digit increases in the provinces of Gauteng and of the province of KZN, together with an increase in the Eastern Cape. We are definitely pulling in the right direction, and we can say that considering the budget allocation, where we have had to make sure that budget is available, considering that the main mandate sits with the South African Police Service, and as a government, we've had to step in and step up, not only with our deep officers in our priority areas, but also in our rural safety and our K9 units that we have deployed across our province. So we definitely see that commitments were made, commitments were met, and we are looking forward to continuing on that particular trajectory. And I can further confirm that during certain quarters over these last 5 years, there has been some increases per quarter. In other instances, we saw, like in last year, for the first 2 quarters, we saw a 14.1% reduction, directly followed by a 5.5% reduction. So we are definitely pulling in the right direction.
While a decrease, MEC, is certainly a positive development, but it comes against the background which says statistically 2 people are killed per day in the Western Cape, particularly in gang violence. How are you doing in managing that aspect of crime?
Thank you for bringing this particular contact crimes, particularly murder, into this conversation as well. I think we have looked at April to September, and we saw that there was 404 gang-related murders. And of that 404 gang-related murders, 78 were innocent victims. It is deeply disheartening. We have had our conversations and discussions with our provincial commissioner regarding our policing needs and priorities, which constitutionally we must table to the National Minister of Police and to the province. We have tabled that consistently every year, and in that particular report, which is widely consulted on, we have advocated for the capacitation and for our anti-gang unit to actually be well-resourced. But this speaks to a broader issue of our call for devolution, considering that we are doing policing the same over and over, expecting different results. Yeah, we've already showed that we can step in with an evidence-based approach, with a data-led approach, And our call for devolution remains consistent, considering that the Constitution allows for devolution. 206 of the Constitution also allows for functions to be allocated to a provincial executive in terms of policing mandates.
Yeah.
And that is ultimately what we are wanting to achieve so that we can create a safer Western Cape for all.
The reason, MEC, I'm almost obsessed with this plan, with this safety plan, is that the Premier yesterday saying that it is rooted in data, evidence, and technology, which allows you to deploy these 1,300 policemen and women in a smarter and more effective way. How are you doing that in township areas like Nyanga and Khayelitsha, which has seen some really gruesome murders in the last couple of years and months?
Thank you for allowing me to bring this particular comment in as well. Just yesterday, we received information from our mobility department. Our mobility department was part of an engagement with the National Minister of Transport, and in that particular engagement, national government indicated that our hotspots for accidents that leads to fatalities was actually the observatory area together with the Gudut area. Now, that can never be. It can never be, because those two areas that I just mentioned has two of our biggest hospitals. Two of our biggest hospitals, the one being Grooteskier in Observatory. What we have done, we look at the data where murders occur, the time when murders occur, but we also look at the causative factors. That ultimately gives us a picture on where our officers are needing to be, at what time they are needing to be, but also even in what streets they are needing to be. Considering that we have mapped our crime hotspots strategically, it has a gang profile. It also has a crime profile that is occurring in that particular community. So we ultimately deploy where the need is the biggest and where we can ultimately see that we are going to arrest these perpetrators that are causing all of these crimes. So it is a multi-faceted approach. On the one hand, the law enforcement approach, but also, like the Premier indicated yesterday, the violence prevention, because we're also looking at the root causes of crime to make sure that we can ultimately bring these perpetrators to book. But technology has been embraced by the Western Cape government. We also have our shot spotters by the city of Cape Town, and we monitor where gunshots are going off, so they can actually be a quicker turnaround in order to catch those perpetrators. So technology, using data and evidence, and the evidence is one that as a country we have never embraced in terms of policing. So the evidence suggests we would go in, and in that particular precinct we would look at the causative factors. We would bring in various departments to play their particular role, but also from the law enforcement. And if something doesn't work, we are quick and we are agile in order to amend our processes, because various communities are very different. And the areas that you have mentioned, Delft and in Fuleni, are two of the areas here in the Western Cape that have seen almost a double, almost 100% growth in their population than more than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And those two areas were hotspot areas. They are no longer the murder capital of our country.
I want to conclude on this note, because I found it quite interesting that the Premier almost placed emphasis as he was delivering his speech. He said, and I quote, "Nothing stops a bullet like a job." My question to you, how do you make that philosophy become a reality in gang-prone areas, in your crime hotspots? Because you also pride yourself as a province that creates the most amount of jobs.
And that has also been confirmed by the data that is released on a quarterly basis. When we look at the last year, we have created almost 65% of all jobs that were created in our country was here in our province. And the Premier is quite correct in indicating that in giving someone an opportunity to earn a living, in order for that particular person to make sure that they are not reliant on gangs or get involved in gang activities, we firmly support it. And the Premier is further of the view that no department in the Western Cape should get a free pass.
Yeah.
So cultural affairs and sport has a role to play. Social development has a role to play. Finance, economic development, all has a role to play, because we have personally seen it. From our side in police oversight and community safety, we have our chrysalis program. Our chrysalis program was actually benchmarked by 4 other provinces. So KZN, together with Gauteng and other provinces, came down to the Western Cape in order to see what we are doing in that particular space. And that program is world-renowned, considering that we are looking at our most disadvantaged areas. We upskill those young persons. We provide them a job opportunity for the first 12 months, and we actually see 80% of them find further employment within that first 12 months. So we are very proud of our chrysalis program, but also youth development across our entire province, considering that we are wanting to ensure that our communities are safer, to attract investment. And when we call for devolution of policing powers, it's in this particular vacuum where we have seen, where we govern, we are able to govern better. And where we govern, we are able to bring so much more people into the economy, so that we can ultimately create those jobs, ultimately make sure that there's peace, there's some quiet in various communities, because we know for many, many years it has been very difficult for many. Considering 10 years ago, we were the province where we saw the highest amount of murders year on year. That has now drastically been reduced, considering that the Premier was very clear in tabling the Western Cape Safety Plan. And may I add, the Western Cape Safety Plan that was tabled in 2019, when we did an analysis of the national crime and integrated policy around crime prevention, it was almost like a carbon copy of what we have been tabling here in our province. But we definitely see with the political will, with the proper management, we are able to turn that tide. And I think the Premier has definitely showed the residents of the Western Cape that those commitments were made and it was kept, and it's a promise to continue.
Reagen Allen, let me thank you very much for your time.